Two huge wins for the St. Louis Blues over the course of this weekend, and now the Blues are inching towards getting that second wild card spot. They just have the Golden Knights ahead of them, but I am not concerned. I'm going to tell you more about what Jordan Kyrou told me and why maybe he feels a little bit more motivated for the playoffs. This is coming up here on Locked on Blues.
You're Locked on Blues, your daily podcast on the St. Louis Blues. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, and welcome back to Locked on Blues. I am your host of Locked on Blues, Haley Taylor Simon, talking to you all things about our St. Louis Blues here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Two huge wins over the weekend for the St. Louis Blues. I'm going to talk about that. I know that win against Minnesota was a shootout win. It was still a win, so a win is a win. Robert Thomas is him, and why do I think that? And respecting Jordan Kyrou, and I do have that video / audio if you're not on YouTube but listening, of what Kyrou told me on an exclusive one-on-one that we had. Before I dive deeper into this episode, I just want to let you know that today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $200. If your bet wins, visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. St. Louis, what a weekend we had. We had a shootout win against the Wild, which honestly, the 2 points I like. It's the Wild getting 1 point that I didn't like. And of course, a major win against Anaheim. And now the Ducks are officially eliminated from the playoffs. And it's because of us. Well, not really. They sucked all season. But it is nice knowing that we played a role in officially eliminating another team because I am nervous about the Blues. I'm trying to be positive and optimistic, but sometimes that's really difficult to do with this team. So I am going to talk a little bit about why maybe that win against the Wild, while that was a good win that we had, obviously in a shootout, why I felt annoyed about the game even going to a shootout. So Jordan Kyrou scored a power play goal, believe it or not, in the second period, giving the Blues a 1-0 lead. 27 seconds into that final frame, or so we thought, Captain Braden Shen was able to give the Blues a 2-0 lead. Well, not even a minute later, the Wild score, and then later in the third period, with only a couple minutes remaining, they score again. So the two teams go to OT. And I was like, wow, the Blues had a 2-0 lead for like less than a minute, and now we're going to overtime. Like, that was my mentality. I'm like, there's no way that this team is fumbling the bag like this. Now, am I surprised? No. This is so St. Louis. But, Blues are at home. They have the fans behind them. Everyone matters at this point. So here's the shootout. And I'm only going to talk about our guys because I could care less about the other guys. Obviously, Bennington was in net and made some great saves. And I will talk about that. But I'm going to talk about our guys. Thomas with a backhand. It was too wide left. Didn't happen. Neighbors shot off the crossbar. Unfortunate. Braden Shen, he had a wrist shot, went in. And then Matt Boldy for the Wild had a shot go in. So, like, whatever. Jordan Kyrou got a nice little backhandy. And then Jordan Bennington was able to save. And the Blues won. So, a little longer of a shootout than I would have liked. It is what it is. But, yeah, Jordan Kyrou definitely stepped up huge in this game. And this is the thing that I don't understand, and I'm trying to understand it, is why does he get so much hate when he does have clutch moments? I think you have to kind of accept this about Kyrou. We know that he's not the type of player that is going to be this all-star that you see on the ice, right? That's another player on the team. But at the same time, he played a phenomenal hockey game. And I hate to say, oh, well, he's the reason why the Blues won because, again, Bennington was phenomenal in net during that shootout. But at the same time, it's like Okay, well, clearly, he's not getting the respect that I think that he deserves. Now, we all can have different opinions on Rosie, right? I just unbiasedly, right? I have to say that he played a phenomenal hockey game, and so did Braden Shen. I feel like he doesn't get talked a lot about this in this game. I know that, with captaincy this year, he hasn't been really performing the best, but at the same time, I love Shenner, and I don't know, he's just somebody that I personally love, and I just want to see him succeed as captain. So it was a good win. They got 2 points. And then yesterday, St. Louis, I should say last night actually, had a nice 4-2 win against the Anaheim Ducks. Now, I was still hoping for that goalie goal at the end of the game from Hofer. It was Hofer and net, but what an interesting game. So Troy Terry scores for Anaheim in the first period, and then the Magic, because get it, because like they used to be like the Mighty Ducks, so like Disney, okay, but the Magic ended up shifting to the Blues' side because the Blues then had 4 goals in a row, and some of these goals, not the kind of goals you would think. So Kevin Hayes has a goal in the second period, equalizing the game 1-1. And I talked about this before, and I want to include this because this is something that I find so amazing about Kevin Hayes and the person that he is. A few years ago, Kevin Hayes' brother unexpectedly passed away, and they were really close. His name was Jimmy Hayes, and best buds. Anyways, whenever Kevin scores, it is honestly so cool to see. If you don't notice it, he points up to the sky, and it's always in honor of his late brother. So if you ever tend to watch Kevin Hayes score a goal and you're like, why does he always point up? Because, everybody has different celebrations that they do when they score. Right? Wait, Sellies, let me rephrase because this is a hockey podcast. They always do different things. But the reason why Hayes ends up pointing up is because he wants to honor his late brother, Jimmy. And last night, for whatever reason, I got really choked up when I saw that. Maybe it's because I was frustrated with how this team was playing, and then all of a sudden Kevin Hayes has been scoring lately. He scored in Philadelphia, Boston, and now against Anaheim, and he's been playing pretty good hockey. So I think seeing that last night, and he always endures a lot from people, and it hasn't been easy for him this season. It just choked me up, and just a really nice tribute that he does for his late brother, Jimmy Hayes. Anyways, moving on to that third period, we had a bunch of power play goals, okay? We had about 2 minutes in, a Robert Thomas, it's always RT season, baby. He had a power play goal. I'm going to talk more about that in my next segment. Then we had Jake Neighbors with a power play goal. And then, of course, another Robert Thomas power play goal. At the end of the game, no surprise, but Anaheim pulled their goalie, and Troy Terry got his second goal of the game, giving the Blues a 4-2 victory. The reason why I laugh about this is because Troy Terry and RT, they both had 2 goals in the game. And it sucks. It's like Anaheim's not a good team, but you would think that Terry would get like at least like 1 star. No, he got nothing. And it just kind of cracks me up. Well, not like the 1 star, but he would get like the 3rd star of the game, but no. So that made me laugh, to be honest. Now, an interesting thing that Robert Thomas said to Jamie Rivers on the post-game show that they do. I met Jamie. Jamie's awesome. It was his birthday the other day, so happy birthday, Jamie Rivers. He will be on the show very soon. He said, we have the best goalie tandem in the NHL with Jordan Bennington and Joel Hofer. And he said that we have the best 2 goalies in the NHL. And it got me thinking because, and again, all the different interviews that I did exclusively with the St. Louis Blues players will be up shortly throughout the weeks. But that was one thing that Jordan Bennington told me, was that he believes that Joel Hofer has grown into such a strong goalie. And he's confident too that, this is a really good goalie tandem that they both have. So it is nice to see Robert Thomas being able to not only acknowledge that, but that was like the first thing he said after he had a stellar game, was, hey, I just want to put this out here, but we have the two best goalies in the NHL. So, yeah. Anyways, I will talk more about Robert Thomas coming up. But first, I want to tell you about my friends over at Robinhood. Did you know that even if you have a 401k for retirement, you can still have an IRA? Robinhood has the only IRA that gives you a 3% boost on every dollar you contribute when you subscribe to Robinhood Gold. But now, get this. Now through April 30th, Robinhood is even boosting every single dollar you transfer from other retirement accounts with a 3% match. That's right, no cap on the first 3% match. Robinhood gets you the most for your retirement thanks to the IRA with a 3% match. This offer is good through April 30th. Get started at robinhood.com/boost. Subscription fees only. And now for some legal info. Claim as of Q1 2024 validated by Radius Global Market Research. Investing involves risk, including loss. Limitations apply to IRAs and 401ks. 3% match requires Robinhood Gold for 1 year from the date of the first 3% match. Must keep Robinhood IRA for 5 years. The 3% matching on transfers is subject to specific terms and conditions. Robinhood IRA available to U.S. customers in good standing. Robinhood Financial LLC member. SIPC is registered broker dealer. Anyways, let's continue on and talk about why Robert Thomas is him. Last night I put out a tweet at Lockdown Blues, and a bunch of you did think it was funny because this happened within a span of 20 minutes. I said, I'm really feeling a Robert Thomas goal tonight. And you know what happens? He scored. I just felt like it was coming. Now, I did get a little bit greedy, and I'm like, okay, maybe we can get a Robert Thomas hat trick. But evidently, that didn't happen, even though it was very close to happening at one point in the game. Robert Thomas, we know that he is a leader for a reason. He wears that A for a reason. And he does really do a good job with motivating this team. I feel like Robert Thomas is one of those players that has what it takes to be a captain one day. And I've talked about that a lot here in Lockdown Blues about how I do feel like one day he will take over as captain when Braden Shen is no longer playing in the NHL. I do feel like he's going to retire in a couple seasons. I don't know for sure, but just a little, little vibe I might be getting. But Robert Thomas, and the reason why I talked about his post-game interview with Jamie Rivers is because he is the type of person, and this has been said about him all the time, and it's true. He puts everybody else before him. And I see this on ice all the time. There's plenty of opportunities for RT to take a shot on goal, but instead he'll make a pass. And that's why his assists are so high. It's not because he doesn't have the capability to score goals. It's because he's the most selfless player I've ever seen play hockey in the NHL. And I think one player that's been really playing some great hockey that reminds me a lot of Robert Thomas is Jake Neighbors. You might be wondering, Haley, what is the comparison on that one? There's something special about Robert Thomas when he hits the ice. He's fast, he has good puck handling skills, and most importantly, he knows how to make plays happen in the offensive zone. Robert Thomas, though, and the thing that makes me think maybe a little bit Jake Neighbors-ish is Jake Neighbors plays the way that Robert Thomas could play if RT wanted to score as much, if that makes any sense. I know Darkness said, I'm going to put this up here, Robert Thomas could easily score 40 if he wanted to, and that is true. And I think when you have a player like Robert Thomas, a player that is so selfless on the ice, it helps make others look good. And I think the one thing that I really wanted out of Robert Thomas this season was for him to be a little bit more selfish on the ice. But I feel like that's not how he is going to play his game. When I was able to cover the team in person a couple weeks ago, Robert Thomas was the first player out on the ice for morning skate. And he was out there by himself for maybe 5 minutes. And he puts in the work. And, during that morning skate and covering the team for the day out in person, I got to see the leadership that he exhibited in the locker room, that he showed on the ice. And he's a very well-respected player, and it's, I have an interview with Robert Thomas that I will be sharing within the next couple weeks. But for me, yeah, is it always Robert Thomas season? It is, because he is the driving force of the St. Louis Blues. There's not one other player on this team that I feel like could motivate the team to play this good of hockey other than Robert Thomas. And I get it. You have a goalie in Jordan Binghamton who's been around, that's very well respected. You have Captain Braden Shen. I mean, you have Colton Parayko. You have all these different players, Pavel Buchnevich. Like, you have all these players that are super well respected throughout the National Hockey League. But yet, the only player, when he's playing the best games, you notice everybody else around him plays some really good hockey too. And that's because Robert Thomas carries the St. Louis Blues. And Jake Neighbors, and this is what I'm observing again, folks, right now, I'm observing Jake Neighbors, a player that is playing how Robert Thomas plays in a sense, right? Where he's taking those bold chances. And another player that stepped up, by the way, has been Zachary Bolduc. I spoke to him as well, and I have an interview with him that I'm going to post soon. But he's been, again, another driving force of the St. Louis Blues. I'm happy that these younger guys are, being brought up, and I think that's important to the growth of this team. Obviously, I follow the Thunderbirds, and sometimes their hockey is more entertaining than the Blues, especially when the Blues are not so hot. It's T-Birds time, and I'm just excited about the future of this team. I really am, and I can't, put that into more words, but knowing that Robert Thomas is the future, he is the present, he's the future, he is St. Louis, makes me feel good. Okay, so I'm going to do a quick little break. And then when I come back from that, I'm going to play you the exclusive clip of Jordan Kyrou that I had when I interviewed him a few weeks ago. So it's never seen before, video, audio, whatever you're listening to. And yeah, Jordan Kyrou is a cool guy, nice guy. And he was very open and honest with me about the upcoming Stanley Cup playoffs. But first, I want to tell you about my friends over at FanDuel. Say goodbye to busted brackets because FanDuel lets you bet on every game of the tourney. Whether you're betting on a big upset or a one seed, it's time to get dancing on America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. That's $200 to use point spreads, money lines. You can even pick who's going to win it all. Just visit FanDuel.com/locked on and bet on college hoops until they cut down the nets. FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the Locked On NHL podcast. Now, the thing about FanDuel that I like, and this is really random, it is probably my favorite sports betting app. I like to sports bet, and they have so many different options, and I just can't get enough of FanDuel. So make some money with FanDuel. So FanDuel.com/locked on. Okay. Exclusive Jordan Kyrou content. I hope that you can hear the audio on this. This is my first time playing a video from any of my interviews. So I'm going to play this interview, and you're going to hear my questions. It's about like 30 seconds long. So here we go. So this season, I would say this is a pretty good season for you. How do you feel like it's going thus far with, heading towards the end?
I mean, I think we're in a pretty good spot right now. These are exciting times. We're right there in the playoff race, right? We're a couple points out, so we got a couple big games ahead of us here.
You have a big, trip up in the East. You have Philadelphia, then you head out, to New Jersey, New York. What do you think about these games as they're really crucial as you're still fighting for that wild card spot?
Yeah, so like I said, these are big games, right? So they're exciting games to play in. We got something to play for right now, so we're all pretty pumped up. Okay, so you just heard what Jordan Kyrou had to say about, how big these games are. So obviously that was filmed a few weeks ago, and, their trip up east wasn't the best. They beat the Bruins, but as you can tell that he is motivated for the playoffs. Interviewing Kyrou, and, we talked a little bit after that. One big thing that I got away was he is so motivated, okay? My voice went up 10 octaves on that, but he is motivated. He is determined, and he's been playing a lot better of hockey. I will never understand the disrespect that he gets because you can clearly tell that there is a passion there. He knows, hey, This season, I want to go back to the playoffs. And he knows that. He's been playing a lot better. Sometimes players get cold, and that is okay. I mean, it happens, it sucks, but that's, the name of the game. And I think that he is somebody that deserves much more respect. He is a player that deserves to be respected because he is an important member of the St. Louis Blues team. And when Kyrou plays good hockey, it shows. And against the Wild, you know, say what you want, but he had a great game. And I think that he's had more great games recently. I think he's been playing better. Yeah, the turnovers suck, and I'm not going to defend that. But you heard that exclusive clip of Jordan Kyrou where he did say how motivated he was. So let's remember at the end of the day, you have players, no, I'm not saying on the Blues, just in general around the National Hockey League, that could easily say, yeah, there's always next season. He's coming out and saying, no, like, I want to go to the playoffs. I am motivated. Like, he believes that this team is capable of doing that. So I respect Kyrou 100%. Because out of all the guys that I interviewed that day, I think he was the only one that said to me, hey, I want to talk about the playoffs with you. Because this is something that he knows that the Blues can do. And, a part of me, I get frustrated with Kyrou a lot because I'm like, come on, Jordan, step it up a little bit. But it's a tough game. And these guys, it's a very physical game. And I'm not making excuses. But, things happen. Okay. And he's been playing better, and most importantly, he is so motivated. So I want to know, why do you think it is? And I have an idea of why I think it is, but why do you think Kyrou gets as much hate as he does? Do you think it's because people think that he doesn't care about the game? Is because of how he's been playing, and maybe he's not been playing so great, so it's just easy to throw him underneath the bus? I personally will never understand it. It's like the Torrey Krug hate. Yeah, he's a frustrating player. There's no doubt about it. I always forget that he's a defensive player because I feel like he's just more better offensively. But I don't understand the hate that these players endure. And it does hurt me because, I hate to be like all negative and talk about an incident. But when fans were booing Jordan after Chief and that whole situation, he was very emotional. And I think he genuinely loves St. Louis. And he loves playing in front of the the Blues fans, obviously. So I think that you have players that maybe don't always connect with their fan base, and he feels super connected. And I understand that sometimes, you don't always, have us games, and I get that, but we just have to respect our players a little bit more. So I got a message and it says 14 games left. Blues need to win 10 or 11. Let's go Blues. Yeah, so talking about that, they have the Avalanche coming up tomorrow. That makes me nervous. There's no denying that. But they're 4 points behind the Vegas Golden Knights, if I do believe. Let's go see. I hate looking at standings like this because honestly, it stresses me out, but this is reality of the situation where the Blues are in. Okay. So let's go see. Oh, yeah. I'm nervous. Okay. Blues have 75 points. VGK has 79. Obviously, 4 points behind. Let's go see who the Golden Knights are playing because the Predators have 85. Do I think the Blues are going to catch up to the Preds? Probably not. So, unfortunately, the Golden Knights did defeat the Devils the other night, 3-1, which really sucked. But they do have the Lightning coming up tomorrow, so I'm really hoping that the Lightning win. We have to, at this point in the season, we have to root for other teams to beat the teams that we need to lose. And it's very frustrating because I hate to be like, yeah, like, let's root for the Lightning. I'm not rooting for the Lightning, mind you. I am rooting for the Golden Knights to lose so the Blues can continue to win. Okay, so the Golden Knights then have tomorrow night the Lightning. Then they have the Kraken. So again, Seattle, please win. Then they have the Blue Jackets, which kind of is like, oh man. And then they have us next Monday here in St. Louis. That's an important game, okay? That is a really important game coming up. So I am hoping that the Golden Knights lose all those games and then they come into us while we have the second wild card spot. Now, I'm going to talk about the Minnesota Wild because they're another team that we need to lose. They're 1 point behind us. So tomorrow they have the Ducks. Listen, Anaheim, get some revenge. Finish off your season strong and beat the Wild. Then they have the Kings on Wednesday, and I think that the Kings could beat the Wild. I do. And then on Saturday, they have us. And we're in Minnesota this time. So, again, we're playing some really crucial games because we're playing against two teams coming up that we need to beat because they're the two teams that are in our way of making it to the playoffs. And then, obviously, we have a slate of important games approaching us because, we love important games at the end of the season. So, obviously, we have tomorrow night the Avalanche at home, finishing off the home slate of the 4 games at home, which I love. And then we head out to Ottawa to take on the Senators on Thursday. We should win that one. And then we have, obviously, the Wild on Saturday, Golden Knights on Monday. So 4 big games approaching. The Avs tomorrow, going to be a tough one. I really hope we can pull that off, and I'll talk more about that on tomorrow's episode. The Senators, again, they should be able to beat them. We should be able to beat the Wild. Listen, it's a day game. You know how I feel about day games. Not a huge fan. So I don't know, especially with this team. But huge game too on Monday with the Golden Knights. So a lot of hockey games that are important games. And maybe I am more motivated than the players right now because I'm like, okay, this is the ways that the Blues can make it to the playoffs. I just want to see playoff hockey here again. Do I think it's going to happen? I don't know. Because, you could also say, Haley, being 4 games behind a team isn't, bad. But think about how little hockey there is left of the season. How we only have 14 games left. Do you really think that the Golden Knights are going to lose the remainder of their games? I don't know. I don't think so. It's tough right now. The race of the playoffs goes on, and I'm proud of the Blues. They have a 4-game winning streak, which is huge. But that's not going to mean anything if they can't make it to the playoffs. I'm not going to look back and say, oh, yeah, this was a good season because they had a 4-game win streak at the end of the season. No, I'm going to say, why didn't they play good, consistent hockey throughout this season? Why was there so many patches of inconsistency? That's how I'm going to respond. Especially that Islanders game. That should have been a win, and I'm sorry, and I hate to be like a Debbie Downer, but looking back, they were up 2-0 against the New York Islanders, and yet they blew that. They were up 2-0 against Minnesota and went to a shootout. You get what I'm saying? How come this team can't maintain the leads? And that's their issue, and that's going to be what's going to hurt them the most because that Islanders game, if they had 2 points from that game, they would only be a game behind the Golden Knights now. But guess what? They're not because they lost. Again, every point matters, and you can go on and say, oh, I'm so point obsessed. Because on this podcast, I know I talk about points quite a bit. But it's because every point matters. And at the beginning of the season, those points matter just as much as the points do now. Because, again, 2 points and 1 point is better than no points. And that is my point. So I will talk to you tomorrow to talk about that game against the Colorado Avalanche and what I think St. Louis can do to win, hopefully. I really hope they win. And so again, exclusive content with Jordan Kyrou. I'll be posting that video in its entirety on the channel. And yeah, we'll be able to talk some more about some other interviews that I have coming up. But what a day for the St. Louis Blues. All right. I'm going to be positive. I hope they can win tomorrow. I will talk to you tomorrow. Let's go Blues.